I was lost without a map, 18 years old, and nowhere to go, with no real plan. I was becoming overwhelmed with the vastness of the world I was thrust into. The responsibility of being an adult and making my own decisions. I was a newly, freshly minted high school graduate. I just wasn't prepared for it all. I felt as though I was thrown into the deep end of the pool. Except I didn't know how to swim. And at the time, I had the identity of being that lost soul, with no direction and no purpose. Teddy Roosevelt talks about being in the arena and getting bloody and doing the work. And unbeknownst to me, I was about to get thrown into that arena to find my purpose through the trials of life. I was about to become the gladiator battling through life. The life that had so many transformations, so many identity shifts. And the amazing part is the most recent one was the hardest one to make. The most recent one threw me for the biggest loop. You see, life's journey started out when I got out of high school. I was completely lost. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't really have a plan. And then NYPD decided to hire me. They appointed me to the academy. And it scared my mother to death. God bless her. She said to me, "I wish you wouldn't, but I know you have to." And that piece of wisdom she gave me, I didn't realize until many years later. During my NYPD days, I was on a journey to discover my purpose. And that purpose really did turn out to be protect and serve. It's not just words printed on the side of the car. A lot of guys feel that way. I know I did. And it probably came from when I was in high school, junior high school and high school. And I was bullied. And I had to walk. I would choose sometimes to walk 2 miles to school to avoid the bus and to avoid the bullies. And now as a cop, I got to stand at the gates of the front line. I got to be the guy that separated and protected those kids that felt they were being bullied. I got to protect those wives and those mothers that had to walk home from the subway station. And they didn't like the thugs that were standing on the street corner. Back when I got hired, New York City had 2,500 homicides in 1 year. 2,500. Like, do that math. What's that math? 2,500 divided by 365. That's almost 7 homicides a day. 7 homicides a day. And there was wives and mothers and kids walking around the streets wondering if they were going to be next. And I was the guy standing on the front line saying, "You're not going to be next. I'm here to protect and serve you." That's really how I felt. It took me a little bit to realize that. But I internalized that, and that's who I became. I became the guy that stood on the front lines to protect those individuals. And in the police department, I went through transformations in the police department and struggles. One of those struggles was the sergeant's test. The sergeant's test comes up, and I sit there and I say, I don't have enough experience. I let my limiting beliefs hold me back. I don't have enough experience. Who am I to lead individuals? Yet Tommy Shea, whom I went to the academy with, we got appointed at the same time. We went through the academy at the same time. From the academy, we went to the same precinct, and we basically worked the same job. So when the 3 years came and we were both eligible, he decided, yes, I'm eligible, I can do this, and I let my limiting beliefs hold me back. And then Tommy Tommy got promoted to lieutenant and captain, and I was still a police officer. And that was one of the struggles I had, is fighting through my limiting beliefs. Another struggle I had in the police department was, the longer I was a cop, the more I hated the political environment of the police department. I could deal with being on the street. I could deal with rolling around the street with perps, with criminals. I could deal with consoling the widow. I could deal with consoling the old person that got mugged, because that's what I was there for. I was there to take care of them, to support them, to protect them, to make it just a little bit easier. What I wasn't there for was the political side of the job. The boss is more concerned with the summonses than with how many little old ladies I walked home from the subway, or the summonses rather than how I protected the store owners, or the summonses rather than when I found I had this little kid, a little boy, his red bicycle got stolen, and one of the best stories I have as a cop is when I found that bicycle, and it really happened by happenstance. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, but it was such a good feeling when that little boy was returned his bicycle, and the person that had it was held accountable. That's why I became a police officer. I didn't become a police officer so that I could write a summons. It's because it wasn't in me. So I started to feel out of alignment. As a cop, I think your job is to walk that wife home from the subway station because she's feeling a little uneasy. It's about standing in front of that storefront and making sure that the kids coming home from school aren't going to terrorize the customers or the store owner. It's not about writing a summons for somebody that's parked in a bus stop because they have to run in to get a container of milk to bring home to their newborn. But the political environment was, how many summonses did you write? How many summonses did you write? How many summonses did you write? And I was starting to really feel that conflict. Fortunate for me, I was able to roll over to the fire department. And in rolling over to the fire department, it's funny because at that point I really did want to go to the fire department. I wanted to be a fireman. It was the next chapter of my life. Like, that's what I really wanted deep down. But what nobody knew was the conversation I was having with myself. This is where your subconscious starts playing tricks on you. And I didn't realize this then. But my subconscious was playing tricks on me, because going to the fire department was the complete unknown. And when I went to the fire department, when I was planning on going to the fire department, what did that look like? I wasn't going to know anybody. Was I going to, kind of fit in? Is the fire department really going to like me because I came from the police department? All of these thoughts were flooding into me. And I actually considered, because I was on the sergeant's exam, I got promoted to sergeant. It came out on the orders 2 or 3 days after I resigned. That's how close it was. So I was considering staying, taking the promotion to sergeant, and then, all right, now I already know the book, so to get to lieutenant wasn't going to be that big of a leap. I just had to study a little bit more, and then I could be captain. No big deal, right? I could have that increase in income so that I didn't have to work as much overtime. I'd be able to still provide for my family. I'd be comfortable, quote unquote, my subconscious would be comfortable. The best move I ever made was pushing those thoughts out and going to the fire department. And when I went to the fire department, it was 9/11. So I went, 9/11 happens, and that happens on 9/11. The end of October, I'm appointed to the fire department. And now I'm in the fire department, and I'm going through their academy, and I'm learning their ways. And now I go out to the field. And the scaredest I've ever been. I've chased guys with guns. I've rolled around with perps on the sidewalk. I've searched warehouses. I've crawled down smoke-filled hallways. I've crawled into basements, into huge warehouses with search ropes. Like, through all of that, the scaredest I've ever been in my entire life was the first run I had as a fireman. You have to remember that when I was a cop, I was like, should I go to the fire department, right? Or should I just stay, become a sergeant, and stay comfortable? Now I go to the fire department, my first run as a fireman. I'm standing in the lobby of the City Court building in Queens. Long Island City, Queens. I'm standing in the lobby of the City Court building. City Court building is 25, 30 stories out. It's a high rise. And this is right after 9/11. And I'm standing in there and I could just feel the fear in every ounce of my body. This is how it started just a couple of months ago. The dust was still in the rigs. The World Trade Center dust was still in the rigs. And I was standing in the lobby of a high-rise, and I was scared shitless. And whatever I summoned up inside of me to just keep my cool, I actually kept my cool because I really looked around, and nobody else was losing their cool. Nobody else looked concerned. Everybody else looked like it was routine. But it was still completely nerve-wracking. And that was the first identity shift I had to like really make. Like, wow, I really am a fireman now. And from there, it was just 2 months later, and not even, it was about a month and a half later, and I was deciding whether I was going to become a lieutenant or not. The city of New York allows you to take a promotion exam based on your city time, not your department time. So even though I only had a couple of months as a fireman, they said I had 10 years of city experience, so I was allowed to take the promotion exam. Not a rule that I support, but it's a rule that I'm going to play by. I'm going to play by your rules. And I thought back to Tommy Shea, and I was like, I was having that same battle again. I don't have enough experience. Who am I to lead guys into burning buildings? And I went back to Tommy Shea. And Tommy Shea, I could hear Tommy Shea whispering in my ear, you can do it. It's all right. You'll be okay. I was okay. You can do this. And then I went to my mentor, who really, really taught me a lot about the fire department. I looked at my past experiences. I spoke to the bosses in the firehouse that I was starting to build a relationship with. They didn't really know who I was yet. I was that brand new. And I decided to take that leap of faith. And it worked out. Every time I made an identity shift, I was scared shitless. Sometimes more than others, but each time it always worked out. And then I was going through the fire department, and I would ask guys, I'd be like, how do you know when it's time to leave? Like, the guys that were retiring, I would ask them, like, how do you know when it's time to retire? Because this is the greatest job in the world. And they would say, you just know. And then my you just know appeared, and I went through that. I really had a draw to retire. And I think I had that draw because I had so much more in me to give out to the world that I just didn't want to do it in the city of New York. I wanted to start doing it on a bigger platform. But I left the fire department. I retired out of the fire department. I went on vacation one day and never went back. I submitted my papers, and that's it. I was out. Close to 25 years of service. And now I fell into the hardest transition, the hardest identity shift that I had to make. And that identity shift was, I almost felt like I was that kid that fell out of high school again. When I was graduated high school, I was in this vast world. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I kind of figured it out. And I almost felt like that again. I felt like my identity was tied to being a fireman, and now I'm not a fireman. My identity was to protect and serve. And now I'm not in that capacity anymore. And then the light bulb went off for me. And the light bulb was, you're not in civil service anymore, but you could still serve. And now I serve the community through my real estate business. I serve the community through my preschool. I serve the community through helping people make alignments, making their own transitions, about talking about the struggles that I went through, so I can inspire others to be like, you know what? It's going to be okay. I'll be all right. I'll be able to figure it out. So when I retired from the fire department, I found myself in that identity void. And then I thought to myself, I could still serve people. And I could serve people through letting their own light bulb go off. There's no better. I used to say I became a competent fireman for the adrenaline rush. And there's a huge adrenaline rush in that job. But I found a new source of adrenaline. And that source of adrenaline is when I have conversations with individuals, when I'm on stage doing a presentation, when I'm talking to individuals after I do my presentation, you hang out, right? And you're talking to attendees. And through that conversation, you see their eyes get nice and wide and bright. And you see your thought hitting them. And it changes their thought pattern just a little bit. And the light bulb goes off. There is no better rush than that in my life right now. That's what I live for. I live for that new adrenaline rush. So in making the shift, the identity shift from high school graduate to PD and FD and father and husband and lieutenant, then real estate investor, we didn't talk about that. Like the fear I had in going into real estate because I didn't know if this was going to work out. I had to seek out a mentor. That meant they gave me mindset. And that's how I ended up here. But through all of those transitions, through all of that transformation, through all that those identity shifts, I was really scared. And what I realized is being scared doesn't make you weak. Being scared makes you human. And I was able to make those transformation shifts in my life in spite of being filled with fear. There was plenty of fear. It looks easy now, right? Because we see the iceberg, that part of the iceberg that's above the water, but you don't see everything underneath the waterline. And that's all the mess. That's all the chaos. That's all the fear. That's the times where I literally walked away from being sergeant. I literally almost walked away from the fire department. The scaredest I've ever been, and I've been in some hairy situations, the scaredest I've ever been, the most afraid, was when I was standing in that lobby on a sunny day. It was the most routine call ever. And I almost stopped being a fireman right there in that moment. But paying attention to what was going on around me, paying attention to the individuals, allowed me to push through that fear. So if you're sitting on the fence right now, something I will challenge you to do is to get into the arena. Get into Teddy Roosevelt's arena. Get dirty. Get banged up. Get bloody. But be your own gladiator. Transformation doesn't happen by chance. Transformation happens by choice. And what will you choose for your life? What choice will you make? Will you choose to be the gladiator of your life? I absolutely know that you have the ability and you'll be able to figure it out. Because I was able to figure it out. And if I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. Guys, we live up here in the numerator, not down here in the denominator. Go out there today and be unstoppable! and absolutely crush your day. I love spending time with you. Have a blessed day.